life using those words. After that, we got a short story, a few questions, the same practice that we've been doing so far. And then we have a couple of atmosphere related exercises for our lesson plan. So not really too much of a teaching aspect there for the lesson plan, more so just working on different types of ways to analyze and identify atmosphere. So hopefully we'll finish those exercises. Let's check this out. Our first topic is vocab. Let's have someone read this slide. Amy, can you read this slide for us, please?
Ravenous. Definition: extremely hungry, devouring or craving food in great quantities. Example: Harry, suddenly ravenous, helped himself to everything he could reach and began to eat. Aghast. Definition: struck with fear, dread, or consternation. Example: He stared at it, aghast, unable to take in what he was seeing. The wand that had survived so much.
All right. Excellent job. So, ravenous. You guys have probably seen this. It's kind of used to describe a more wild and almost animalistic type of personality or action. In this case, we are specifically talking about how it is related to people being hungry, extremely hungry, devouring whatever they're eating, and just eating in really large quantities. So Harry, suddenly ravenous, helped himself to everything, meaning Harry suddenly got extremely hungry and he devoured whatever food's in front of him. The next one is aghast, also an adjective. This one, we see words such as fear, dread. We can kind of assume what this definition is going to look like. It's going to be something that is fearful, something that's kind of worried, um, not really in a positive outlook at all, something that is kind of shocking you as well. So if you are aghast, you are struck with fear. You're kind of just stuck in one spot and um, worried, fearful, that kind of description. So using these two words, let's see if we can write a short paragraph or a short story about this following topic. It says, a spaceship lands in a quiet farming village, and your character is the first to approach the alien. What do they want? So typically, you would have to answer just whatever questions in the prompt, but you guys can get as creative as you'd like with this answer. Um, any topic that is involving the interaction with the aliens would work just fine. If you guys would like, I'm going to put the prompt in the chat and I'll put the definitions back on the screen. As a reminder, try to submit this using around 4 sentences at least. 4 to 6 would be great. And I'll give you around 5 to 7 minutes to complete. If you have any questions, please let me know. All right, so I got a couple of responses so far, which is great. I'm going to give another couple of minutes in case anybody's still writing and finishing up their answers. Please try to submit as soon as possible, and in 1 or 2 minutes, I will take up the answers. All right, so it's been a few minutes. I'm going to take up these answers that I have so far. All right, Halstead, can you read your answer for me, please?
Okay, Bob the High is very ravenous. If he doesn't consume any calories for 2 hours, he's going to aghast. When aliens decided to come to the village where Bob lives, Bob approached them quickly. The aliens were afraid of Bob the second they crash landed. I think there should be an extra Y at the village. Before the aliens could explain, Bob ate the aliens. This story is called The Bad Thing of Dread or Cannibalism.
All right, very creative answer for sure. Let's see. So we got ravenous right in the very first sentence, and we're using it correctly as an adjective to describe our character being um, extremely hungry, devouring any kind of food that's in his way. So let's proofread this. Bob the High is very ravenous. So in your story, I'm assuming High is a type of living creature. Bob the High is very ravenous. The only issue with referring to him as Bob the High is that we never referred to him as that ever again. So if it's important, include it. If you're not going to talk about it afterwards, there's no need to include it. Um, so yeah, just a note. I'll just put a note right there in that case. Let's see. But if it's only used once, then you can leave it out. All right. If he doesn't consume any calories for 2 hours, so when we're using numbers in writing, typically we want to actually write out the word instead of using the number. The only difference is when we're trying to say the year, like 2024, we'd write that out as 2024. But if it's just a number, if it's something that we're counting, we usually write out the actual word. So for if he doesn't consume any calories for 2 hours, he's going to aghast. All right, so aghast, let's refer back to our definition, is an adjective. So if he's going to aghast, that means we're using aghast as a verb, which is not correct. So we can say he's going to become aghast. So now we're using it as an adjective. Now we're using it as a feeling or a personality, I guess, describing our character. All right, moving on. When aliens decide to come to the village where Bob lives, so Bob has to be capitalized, and this has to be a comma. Bob approached them quickly. The aliens were afraid of Bob the second they crash landed at the village. Before the aliens could explain, Bob, again, capital. Whoops. Let's undo that. Bob ate the aliens. All right. And this part right here, sure, you can add that context, but it's like we don't normally include this type of information in a paragraph. If you have a title, you put it at the start. If you don't have a title, you can leave it out. So for now, I'm just going to leave it out. All right. So again, try to use the words with the correct part of speech. So this is an adjective, not a verb. Aside from that, though, nicely written, not too bad at all. We can challenge ourselves to have some good mix of different sentence structures and a little different use of creative writing. I think we'll talk a little bit about creative writing later in our lesson, so I don't want to give too much information out for now. But solid answer for now, though, Halstead. Let's move on. Melinda, can you read your answer for us, please?
The spaceship landed in the quiet village, and I was the first to approach. The aliens looked ravenous, like they haven't eaten in days. I was aghast when they pointed at the crops and made strange noises. They wanted food, and I knew I had to help them. I ran to get the farmer, hoping we could share what we had.
All right. Excellent answer right here. As you're reading it, I didn't notice any awkward wording or any areas that I need to edit. So very well written. Good use of both of these words. So you added a little bit of explanation to explain why you chose each word. So when you said the aliens looked ravenous, you further explained it by saying they looked like they hadn't eaten in days. When you said you were aghast, you further explained it by saying it's because the aliens are pointing at the crops and making strange noises. So excellent job of providing context behind the words. So yeah, that part of the paragraph is pretty good. All right, we're over here. They wanted food, and I knew I had to help them. So this comma right here, we actually don't need it. I ran to get the farmer, hoping we can share what we had. All right, solid. Solid answer right here, not bad at all. You do meet the sentence limit. You have at least 4 sentences here. The only difference I'd make here is if you want to make it a longer answer, by all means. But this is a very solid answer for sure. We got another answer here. 2 more answers, actually. Let's check this out. All right. George, can you read your answer for us, please? George, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
I forgot to open it. Okay. The spaceship landing standing in the field, circling her reflecting moonlight, Sarah stepped forward, her hair lifting, silence and the glowing eye filled with a luminous desperation. Yet, as they gazed at the village, their expression turned adjust as if heart filled by what they saw. Seeing her courage, Sarah just turned for them to explain.
All right. Nicely written here. So we are using some pretty interesting vocabulary in this passage. Let's see. Gleaming hull. Definitely not a common phrase. So interestingly written. I don't see any corrections that I can make. Over here, we are using ravenous to describe their feeling of desperation. Or actually, we're describing the look in their eyes. So their glowing eyes are filled with ravenous desperation. So they're extremely hungry and they're desperate to eat. So good usage of ravenous. Their expression turned aghast. That's a good use of aghast as well. That's definitely in good context as well. It makes perfect sense in this paragraph. It's not forced. Um, Summoning her courage. They're adjusted for them to explain. Nicely done. The only thing I'll add is usually in our paragraphs, um, it's uncommon to see a cliffhanger. So I'm surprised you have a cliffhanger to end off your paragraph. Please try to, or actually, you don't have to fix it, but you can try to wrap up your paragraphs a bit cleaner. There's no need to leave it trailing off like this. But yeah, for next time, you can work on that. Let's move on to Jason. Can you read your answer for us, please? Oh, you got an extra sentence. Let me add that to the bottom.
Yes. Uh, okay. Lying on the chair in my back, lying on, oops. Lying on the chair in my backyard, I was enjoying the comfortable spring sunlight. As I was about to fall asleep, a loud sound suddenly came to my ear. Without hesitation, I opened my eyes to see what was going on. I, I cast an amaze seized me as I saw a big spaceship landing on my farm. After a long time, some people with weird faces looked up. I immediately recognized them as aliens. They looked directly at me, which made me froze. Fortunately, they pointed at a chicken that was in my yard. I'm sure that they are ravenous after a long journey. As a result, I caught two chickens for them. They quickly went away without a word.
All right. Nicely done. And very detailed answer right here. So it's a lengthy, creative response. That's good to see. Let's proofread this. Lying on the chair in my backyard, I was enjoying the comfortable spring sunlight. So sunlight should be combined to one word. As I was about to fall asleep, a large sound. So it's a little odd to describe a sound as something that's large. We could say, uh, maybe we could say an alarming sound. Oops, I'm gonna have to say an alarming. An alarming sound suddenly came to my ear. Um, Came to my ear is a bit awkward of a phrase to use. We can say an alarming sound suddenly startled me. Oops, wrong color. All right. Without hesitation, I opened my eyes to see what was going on. Aghast and amazed, uh, Okay, I like the phrasing that you're using here. Aghast and amazed seized me. I really like that use of, creative writing. I do want to try to change up the phrasing a little bit. We can say feelings of aghast, and this should be amazement. Cross this out, and we'll make this relevant. All right, feelings of aghast and amazement seized me, comma, as I saw a big spaceship landing on my farm. After a long time, some people with weird faces walked out. I immediately recognized them as aliens. They looked directly, a minor typo here. All right, they looked directly at me, which made me freeze. Which made me freeze. Which made me freeze. Yeah, that sounds fine. Which made me freeze. Fortunately, they pointed at a chicken that was in my yard. I'm sure that they're ravenous after a long journey. As a result, I caught 2 chickens for them. They quickly went away without a word. All right, so these last couple of sentences, they're all very similar to one another, and they're all fairly short, like fairly simple formatted. So the reason I bring this up is that you can probably combine them to form, a complex sentence or a compound complex sentence, something along those lines. So we can say, fortunately, they pointed at a chicken in my yard. And we can say, comma, as I'm sure that they are ravenous after a long journey. Yep, sounds good. As a result, I caught 2 chickens for them, and lowercase they, and they quickly went away without a word. All right, so we can combine those sentences just to make it flow a little bit easier. Overall, though, excellent answer right here. A few minor changes in terms of the word choice, just to make it sound a bit smoother. But overall, I like the context of what you're writing. I like the flow. I like the pace. Very good response for sure. Well, we got another answer here. Let's check this out. All right, Amy, can you read your answer, please?
In the foggy cold midnight, Mary was sleeping in the small wooden house of her parents. She was awake because tomorrow she will have a competition, and she was a little nervous. Suddenly, a ray of strong silver light cast through the curtains onto the wall. Gasped, Mary picked up her watch and found that it was still midnight. She stared at the curtains, mouth open wide, not believing what she was seeing. In an instant, she became ravenous for more information about this mysterious light. She took a biscuit from the tattered bedside table. She got out of bed, put on a warm black coat, took the keys, and went out. When she walked on the moonlit avenue, she felt a ray of bright light, and she squinted her eyes. She saw a blue and green spaceship with 3 big letters on it. She hesitated, and finally she walked into the spaceship. Suddenly, a sound came from above. You have enough courage to come here. We'll give you a present when you go home.
All right. Excellent answer right here. Similar to our previous answer, it's a very detailed and lengthy answer, which is great to see. The only thing I would like to add is try to submit this a little bit sooner, but still sounds impressive and very creative, descriptive. So let's check this out. In a foggy, cold midnight. So, foggy, cold midnight, great way to describe it. However, technically, we have to say on instead of in. So let's cross this out. And we're going to have to include a comma right here to separate the 2 adjectives. So on a foggy, cold midnight, Mary was sleeping in the small wooden house of her parents. She was awake because She was awake. Yeah, that sounds fine. If you want to make it sound a little bit smoother, we can say she lay awake. And I'm using the present tense because we have present tense right here. So she lay awake because tomorrow she would have a competition and she was feeling, sorry, she was a little nervous. I think we can say she was feeling a little nervous. Okay. Suddenly a ray of strong silver light. A ray of strong silver light. We can switch up the words a little bit. We can say a strong silver ray of light. I'm going to cross this out. A strong silver, and then we'll move ray of over here. A strong silver ray of light cast through the curtains onto the wall. Aghast, Mary picked up her watch and found that it was still midnight. She stared at the curtains, mouth open wide, not believing what she was seeing. In an instant, she became ravenous for more information. All right, excellent use of ravenous here. We're not talking about food in this case, we're talking about being desperately hungry for information. Very creative. She became ravenous for more information about this mysterious light. She took a biscuit from the tattered bedside table. She got out of bed, put on a warm, black coat, took the keys, and went out. When she walked on the moonlit avenue, nicely done. Using moonlit here is a great way to add some imagery. She felt a ray of bright light. Again, try to use your adjective first and then say ray of light. Because ray of is part of the noun. So let's cross this out. And let's put ray of over here. She felt a bright ray of light and she squinted her eyes. She saw a blue and green spaceship with 3 big letters on it. She hesitated and finally she walked into the spaceship. Suddenly a sound came from above. Yeah, that sounds fine. You have enough courage to come here. We will give you a present when you go home. Okay, so because of the way that we're introducing the quote, we're actually going to change this period to a semicolon because we're introducing our quote. Suddenly a sound came from above. I think we can say a voice came from above because it's someone talking. All right, excellent answer. Very thorough, very well described. Great amount of imagery as well because we're using a lot of light. Sometimes it's a strong ray of light. Sometimes it's dim and it's just moonlit. So excellent job here. Again, though, as I said in the beginning, try to submit this a bit sooner. We only have I think around 7 minutes allocated for writing our paragraphs here. So let's try to aim to fit our answers in that time. All right, moving on. We have our short story that we're going to check out. Let's have someone read this first slide. Let's go with Halstead. Can you read this slide?
Okay, the clock ticked solemnly in the dimly lit parlor. Its sound the only reminder that time is still moves forward. Emma stared at the tarnished locket on the table. Its intricate engravings partially obscured by years of wear. The locket has been her grandmother's passed down through generation, carrying whispers of through stories she'd only half believed as a child.
Her grandmother had always called it the Keeper of Truth, a cryptic title that had haunted Emma's thoughts since the day she inherited it. Tonight she resolved to open it, a seemingly simple act that has been forbidden in her family for as long as anyone could remember. Her fingers brushed the cold metal, and inexplicable dread crept into her chest like the weight of generations was pressing against.
All right. Excellent job. Let's go to the next slide. Let's go with Melinda. Can you read this slide, please?
Emma hesitated. The weight of the family legend was heavier now than ever. Her grandmother's word echoed in her mind. Truth can be a blessed or curse. Choose wisely when to seek it. What truth could this locket possibly contain? The stories told of its magical properties. Some claimed it revealed a personal greatest secret. Others swore it foretold the future. Emma shook her head, dismissing the tales as nothing more than the fanciful inventions of a bygone era. By the lure of answers, of discovering why her grandmother and guarded the locket so fiercely, overpowered her doubt. She took a deep breath and slowly pried it open. Inside, a folded piece of paper lay nestled beneath the delicate frame. Unfolding it, Emma was surprised to find a map, not of any place she recognized, but a landscape that seemed both ancient and otherworldly. The map's details were mesmerizing. Rivers that shimmered like they were alive, mountains shaped like sentinels, and inscriptions in a language she couldn't read. Beneath the map was another note in her grandmother's handwriting. To find what you seek, you must give what you hold most dear. The words sent a chill through her. What did she seek, and what was she willing to lose to?
All right. Very well done. The next page, let's go with George. Can you read this slide, please?
Yeah, next morning, Emma followed the map to an old great-grown forest on the edge of town. She'd been here countless times as a child. By the time the place felt different. The little mom was watching her. She traced the path outlined on that each step pulling her deeper into the forest embrace. The air grew colder, the sunlight dimmer, and the world itself was shifting around her when she reached the marked stop spot, a clearing surrounded by ancient trees. The log began to vibrate faintly in her hand. In the center of the clearing stood a stone pedestal, its surface engraved with symbols that matched those on the map. Emma placed the log down the pedestal and the ground trembled beneath her feet. The symbols began to glow, casting an eerie light over the clearing. A voice echoed in her mind, not her own, but ancient and commanding. What do you think? Her heart raced. Was this a test? A drink swore in her courage. She whispered the truth about my family. The wise replied. Truth requires sacrifice. What will you give? Emma thought of her dreams, her ambitions, and her family. The weight of the choice paralyzed her.
All right. Very nicely done. And our final slide here. Jason, can you read this slide, please?
Tears streamed down her face as she answered my memories. She knew the cost, but failure was the only way to uncover the truth. The light from the pedestal engulfed her, and suddenly she was flooded with the images. Her ancestors, their struggles, their secrets. The locket had been a tool of protection, guarding the family from the curse brought on by betrayal centuries ago. But as the images faded, so did Emma's own memories, slipping away like grains of sand through her fingers. She collapsed. The knowledge of her family's history etched into her mind, but everything else remained her life goal. When she awoke, the forest had returned to its usual stillness. The pedestal and locket gone, Emma stumbled back to town, a stranger in her own life. People greeted her, but she didn't recognize their faces or names. Yet deep in her heart, she felt an odd peace. She had fulfilled her grandma's warning. Truth had come at a price. And though she had lost herself, she had preserved her family's legacy for generations to come.
All right. Excellent job. So that's the end of our short story. Now let's check out a few multiple choice questions. First question says, what motivates Emma to open the locket despite her fear? So what do you guys think? What motivated her to open the locket? All right, so I got a couple answers so far. All right, excellent. So it looks like we're all on the same page. Option B is absolutely correct. Her curiosity and her need for figuring out more about her family. Very nicely done. Let's move on. What does the phrase, to find what you seek, you must give what you hold most dear, most likely imply? So what is this phrase insisting? All right, so I'm seeing a mix of answers here. So when we're looking at this phrase, let's check out two options. We've got B and C. So B says a personal sacrifice is required to uncover the truth. And C, the locket chooses who is worthy based on their bravery. So in terms of this phrase, I think the second part describes the need for sacrifice. You must give what you hold most dear. So if you're giving something away, something that you don't want to give, but you have to, that is the definition of sacrifice. So option B is going to be correct. All right, so we got a couple more. Which literary device is primarily used to create suspense in the story? All right, so we got another mix of answers here. So in terms of creating suspense, one of the best ways to do that in literature or even in movies as well is foreshadowing. So when you are foreshadowing something, that means you are kind of alluding to something that's about to happen. So we're just dropping hints here and there that something might happen in the future, and that possibility is what creates suspense. So option B, foreshadowing, is correct. The last multiple choice question, what is the significance of the forest being described as alive and watching? All right, so I got a couple answers here. We're looking at option C and option D. So option C says it highlights Emma's fear and paranoia. All right, so definitely similar to what we're looking at in the story, in the sense of adding that kind of eerie, uncomfortable atmosphere. Option D says it symbolizes the locket's power over the natural world. All right, not too bad. Okay, so the words alive and watching, they don't necessarily talk about power or talk about the natural world. So these two words are actually more closely related to another option. So the two options that I described right now, they're actually both incorrect. Is there another option here that seems more appropriate? All right, so I'm seeing option B. It illustrates the magical and mysterious atmosphere of the journey. So I'd have to agree. This one seems the most appropriate, especially when it comes to giving these type of human qualities, I guess, to a non-human object. That use of creative writing is going to make things feel a bit magical. So option B is correct. Now let's move on to our long answer questions. Actually, we are a bit short on time. I want to check out a few lesson exercises. So let's skip these questions. Let's go over to the lesson plan instead. So atmosphere, we've been talking about this for a couple weeks now, and I want to wrap it up. So I want to check out a passage that I believe we've read, but we haven't worked on. So let's do that today. So here's our passage, short paragraphs, and we're trying to identify the techniques of atmosphere that's used in this passage, and we're going to answer a couple questions about it. So let's have someone read this slide. Amy, can you read this passage for us, please?
The fog hung thick over the desolate moor, muffling the sounds of the night. Even the moon seemed reluctant to cast its light. Hidden behind shifting clouds, distant howl echoed. The source unseen but uncomfortably close. The gnarled branches of skeletal trees clawed at the sky, their shadows twisting unnaturally in the dim glow of lanterns swinging in the wind.
All right, excellent job. So this passage right here, I want you guys to analyze this by answering the following questions. Before I do, I just want to make a quick note. This word right here is not common. So if you're looking at the definition of this word, we can say it's kind of like an open land. An open, kind of empty land. All right, now let's check out the questions. So the first question here, what techniques does the author use to create a sense of unease in this passage? So I am going to paste the question into the chat, and I'll put the passage back on the screen, and try to submit your answer using around 3 to 5 sentences. Please try to use your own writing for this. Don't resort to any kind of external resources. Whether you're right or you're wrong, doesn't matter. As long as you're able to formulate an idea and back it up, then that's great. If you have any questions though, please let me know. And I'll check back in roughly like 5 minutes or so.
So do I need to write down the techniques that uses in the passage or like analyze the techniques in the passage?
So it's a little bit of both. You're going to have to state which techniques are used and then explain why you think that.
Okay.
And as a refresher, here are the techniques. I'll type the techniques into the chat. So just give me a second here, and you
Oh,
guys can refer to this when you're writing your answers.
okay, thank you.
No problem. All right, so it's been around 10 minutes almost. I don't see any responses yet. This shouldn't take too long, guys. We just have to identify, at least two techniques that are being used and briefly explain them. Should only be like maybe 4 or 5 sentences. Yeah, so let's get some answers going. Okay, so I see answers flowing in right now. Nicely done. Let's check this out. Okay, that's a different exercise. All right, Jason, can you read your answer for us, please?
The author uses the techniques of setting. He describes a dark night and the environment of night. He writes the main characteristic of night, for instance, the moon, the shadows, and so on. The author also uses the five senses to make the story more resonant with readers. It establishes emotional foundation of the entire text.
All right, nicely done. So, the author uses the techniques of setting. So since we're just stating one technique for now, we can just say uses the technique, singular. All right, so I'll make that change here. Cross it out. All right, he describes, so we actually don't know if this is a male or female that wrote this. So we can simply just say the author describes. A dark night and the environment of the night. He writes, again, just so that we remain consistent. They write, the main characteristic of the night, for instance, the moon, the shadows, and so on. So they write the main characteristic of night. I'm not entirely sure what you mean here. They write, I guess you can say they write about the, I can say, most prominent qualities of the night. They write about the most prominent qualities of the night, for instance, the moon, the shadows, and so on. The author also uses the five senses to make the story resonate more with readers. So we're just going to switch these two words around. It establishes emotional, it establishes the emotional foundation of the entire text. All right. So nicely done. Good job of using the setting and descriptions, the imagery used in the setting to talk about how it relates to emotion. Because emotion is very key when we're talking about atmosphere. So nicely done. We picked one technique here, which is perfect. That's fine. We described it very thoroughly, so that's great. Let's move on to our other answers here. All right, and let me just make this a little smaller. All right, Amy, can you read your answer for us, please?
The techniques that the author used are setting, imagery, and figurative language. setting is in a desolate moor, which is an open, empty land, so it gives the reader a kind of uneasiness. It feels like the land doesn't have a lot of life in it. The imagery and figurative language appear when the passage says that the moon is hidden behind shifting clouds, the gnarled branches clawed at the sky.
All right. Excellent job. So this is a very thorough answer when we're talking about all the different types of techniques. We can explain it a bit more, but what you have so far is definitely sufficient. You provide your topic sentence stating each technique, then you break it down by providing a quote and then explaining it. So excellently organized answer. The only minor change I'll make here is each technique doesn't actually have to be capitalized. So instead of making the change, I'm just going to make a note. You don't have to capitalize each technique. And I will change a kind of uneasiness to a sense of uneasiness. The imagery and figurative language appear when the passage says the moon is behind the shifting cloud. The gnarled branches clawed at the sky. So we only have two topics here. We're saying this topic, comma, this topic. Since we only have two, we don't actually need the comma. We can replace that with the word and. Overall, though, excellent answer. Can't really change anything else here. Very thorough. Let's move on to our next answer. George, can you read your answer, please?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you now.
Uh-huh. Laser use imagery and diction to create elements describing thick fog and shadows, twisting unnaturally figurative language like trees, clothing, and the sky. A person feels the setting while the distant who acts as foreshadowing, hitting a at danger. This element hiding tension and dread.
All right. The author uses imagery and diction to create unease, describing thick fog and shadows twisting unnaturally. All right, nicely done. So imagery is definitely used here. We have pretty clear descriptions and adjectives. Diction is an interesting technique to include. Try to explain it a little bit deeper as to what diction means and how is it different from imagery. Let's move on here. Figurative language, like trees clawing at the sky, personifies the setting, while the distant howl acts as foreshadowing, hinting at danger. These elements heighten tension and dread. All right, so excellent closing sentence right here. Really wraps up your answer nicely. Yeah, so the only note I can make is, I guess, further describe how each of these techniques play a role in establishing atmosphere, which in your case is tension and dread. So you kind of provided very minimal information to back it up. You provided really good quotes, but you gotta, add some detail, add your own words to really strengthen that. Especially when it comes to diction, because you don't want to just clump these two together. And by saying it's, they're both here. Typically, these would be used for imagery, but you should still provide a separate definition for why diction is used as well. I'm just going to make this red. All right, so that appears to be the last answer I got. So let's check out the next question here. Highlight examples of. Okay, so we kind of did this already, so let's do number 3 instead. So let's cross out this question. Let's do number 3. How does the setting influence the emotions of the reader? So this time you're trying to focus on the emotions of the reader. Don't write too much about anything that you've already written for question 1. Try to focus more on the emotional aspect. So I'll give you guys another 5 minutes or so. Please don't take too long on this question. It's not supposed to be that long. I put the question in the chat, and I'll put the paragraph back on the screen. If you guys have questions for me, please let me know. All right, so I got one answer here so far. I'm going to give you guys another minute or two in case anyone else is still writing up or wrapping up their answer, and then we'll take it up. All right, so let's take up our answer here. All right, we got two answers. That's great. Okay, Halstead, can you read your answer for us, please?
Okay, the setting influences the reader by including many adjectives about the surroundings. The surroundings will include depressing things or exciting things.
All right, and let's fix the spelling over here. All right, so this is a good start. The reason I say it's a good start is because you briefly introduced your answer, but you're not really backing it up. So you need to provide some details, some direct quotes would be very good option here to really explain why you're correct. So you're saying that the setting influences the reader by including a lot of adjectives. Well, try to provide some adjectives. Give us some examples of these adjectives. You're saying that the surrounding includes depressing things. Provide some examples. You're saying it includes exciting things. Provide some examples. So, the big note here is provide examples and explain them. And yeah, I think this passage also has a ton of imagery as well. So, any sentence could have worked here. So please try to do that for your next answer. Let's move on. Amy, can you read your answer, please?
Setting influences the emotions of the reader in many ways. For example, the thick fog gives the reader a feeling of uneasiness because something might suddenly leap out from the mist. Also, the sounds in the night are muffled, which means that you can't really figure out what scene makes the sound. This gives the reader a sense of unknown and danger.
All right. Nicely done, and good job including the second point here. These sounds in the night are muffled. So that's something that we haven't discussed in any of our previous answers. So nicely done. The setting influences the emotions of the reader in many ways. For example, the thick fog gives the reader a feeling of uneasiness because something might suddenly leap out from the mist. All right, the sounds in the night are muffled, which means that you can't really figure out what thing makes the sound. Can't really figure out, instead of phrasing it like this, we can say you can't really figure out where the sound is coming from or what caused it. This gives the reader a sense of unknown and danger. All right, nicely done. So we provided examples, we backed it up briefly. Solid answer right here. Nicely done. Let's check out a couple more answers that we got here. And let's take this question out. All right, George, can you read your answer for us, please?
The setting influences the reader's emotions by creating an atmosphere of isolation. The thick fog desolate more and shadows drifting unnaturally wakeful of its and vulnerability. The distant hum and dim light add tension, making the reader anticipate danger. This ominous environment amplifies suspense and dread.
All right, excellent answer here. So good job again of incorporating the not so obvious information such as the distant howl and the dim light. So obviously the thick fog, desolate moor, the shadows twisting, those kind of stand out to us as very creative uses of, descriptive writing. But the distant howl and dim light are, added information of imagery and sensory details. that really play a big role in creating an emotional effect on readers. In terms of proofreading, I don't see any issues here as you're reading. Does seem to be pretty well written. Yeah, no issues there. So yeah, very nicely organized answer. Great job here. Let's move on. Jason, can you read your answer for us, please?
All of us has experienced a dark night. In addition, the setting is close to our daily life. As a result, it can resonate with the readers, which can arouse the reader's curiosity and make them keep reading. The paragraph is in the beginning of the passage, so the writer creates a sense of dark and peace. It makes the reader keep on reading with the emotion of peace and comfort.
All right, so I like your take on this answer here. We're trying to describe the answer as a more personal connection. A very unique perspective here. So let's proofread this. All of us have experience, all of us have, I think it's have. All of us have experienced the dark night. Let's try to phrase this a little bit differently, in a way that's more relevant to our story. Have experienced a lonely and gloomy dark night. And let's cross out the word the. In addition, the setting is close to our daily life. All of us have experienced a lonely and gloomy dark night. If I'm actually going to change this, that being said, this setting, as well as how do we connect this? That being said, the setting is also close to our daily life. I think that's fine. Wait, I'm not going to cross that out. I'm going to, setting is also close to our daily life. All right, so I've made a few changes here. Let's check this out. That being said, we can cross this out. The setting is also close to our daily life. As a result, it can resonate with readers, which can arouse the readers. This has to include an apostrophe. Curiosity and make them keep reading. The paragraph is in the beginning of the passage, so the writer creates a sense of darkness and peace. I think peace should actually be peacefulness. And in all honesty, I'm not too sure if peace is actually the right description here. There is an uneasy feeling, so it's not necessarily peaceful. You're not at ease. We could use a different description. So peacefulness is probably not the best word to use here. Moving on though, it makes the reader keep on reading with the emotion of peace and comfort. All right, with the emotions. All right, not too bad. The answer that you provided, you backed it up. So, like I said earlier, there's not necessarily a right or wrong answer as long as you back it up with the relevant information. So that seems to be the last answer I received. So great stuff there. Let's move on to another aspect of atmosphere. This time we're trying to analyze a passage that does not have effective atmosphere. This passage right here, this short paragraph, is an example of not effectively creating atmosphere. What I want you guys to do is I want you to read this paragraph, and I only want you to identify the weak areas of this paragraph. So tell me what it is lacking, and then explain it. That's all you have to do. So, I'll read this paragraph in that case. It was a stormy night. The house was scary, and the noises made it worse. Sarah was nervous as she walked inside. There was lightning, and it made the room bright for a second. She didn't like it there, but she had no choice. So using this passage, identify at least 2 areas that you can improve and explain why they're weak. If you have any questions, please let me know. All right, because we are a bit short on time, I'm just going to read or take up the answer that I have here. So let's check this out. And all right, so Halstead, I know you're away for a bit, so I'll read your answer, no problem. In the passage, using the broad words like house doesn't make a setting as good as the previous passage. If the author used longer sentences and in-depth words, the passage would have been so much better. All right, so yeah, this is actually an excellent point to make. They use broad words. They use vague descriptions. It doesn't have much of a hard-hitting effect on the readers. So nicely done. The only issue is that the example that you provided is not really the best example. Broad words like house. So house is fine. There's nothing wrong with describing a house as a house. It's the way that we're describing the house, or it's the way that the house looks or sounds or feels. So just gonna make a note. Can't really change it in the answer. Try to pick out better examples to explain your answer. If the author used longer sentences and in-depth words, the passage would have been so much better. All right, so your writing is fine here. It's just the example that you provided is not the best. Let's move on though. We got a couple more answers. Oops. All right, Jason, can you read your answer for us, please?
For the improvement part, I demonstrate that the passage should use some descriptions such as environment, feelings to show Sarah's nervousness. The passage is extremely weak because there are no settings and any descriptions.
All right, so for the improvements part, I'm not sure what you mean by improvements, but I'm going to say for the areas of improvement. I demonstrate that the passage should use, demonstrate is probably not the most effective word here. We can say I believe, and let's highlight this, that the passage should use some descriptions such as environment, feeling, to show Sarah's nervousness. Should use some, let's say, stronger descriptions, such as environment and feelings. And then we'll put a comma here to show Sarah's nervousness. Nicely done, to show rather than explain. The passage is extremely weak because there are no settings, and there are no settings or descriptions. All right, excellently done. Absolutely correct. So the setting is not described that well. It's very vague and could be better written. Amy, can you read your answer for us, please?
This paragraph does not effectively create atmosphere because it writes too directly. For example, the house was scary and Sarah was nervous. It should write it indirectly without using words of feelings.
Excellent. So excellent point to make up here. It does not effectively create atmosphere because it writes too directly. For example, house is scary, Sarah's nervous. It should be written. It should be written more indirectly. And then we can cross this guy out without using words of feeling. I think we should say or feelings. All right. Excellent job here. So it looks like everyone's on the same page that the descriptions are very vague. Absolutely correct. So you guys are spot on there. Sensory details are another way to provide descriptions. And I think few people mentioned feelings. That's another good point to make. There's no emotional connection. So very well done. We'll continue this topic for next week as well because there is a follow-up question. Yeah, and Halstead, I see your message as well. Much appreciated. Thank you for that. That is the end of our class today, though. Great stuff, you guys. Thanks for staying later. I'll see you all next week. Take care.
Bye.
Okay, bye. See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you.